I'm going to talk about freestyle fact finding. Here we are. Freestyle fact finding, which is my sales concept for you to take on board today. Now, if you're a mortgage advisor experienced, you'll know that you have to do fact finding. And here's a bit of background for you, and I'll introduce you what I mean by freestyle. Now, back in 2014, lenders, banks, building societies were allowed to do what they call non-advice mortgage selling, which meant that somebody could go on, go phone them up, and they go through a sort of decision tree process, and then you come onto a product, the client buys it. There was no advice; it was non-advice or decision tree based selling. And it was pretty okay. It was risk-free because the client made the decision themselves. There's no advice. And you kind of guided them according to the questions that you asked. And you guided them to whatever product they wanted. Now, in 2014, that was banned with the Mortgage Market Review, and they started to make advice compulsory. It's changing a bit now, which is good news. So suddenly all these lenders had to start giving advice. And they said, well, to give advice, we've got to do a fact find. So, we've got to do a fact find. And when we've done a fact find, we've got to get needs from the client. We've got to find out what their needs are, determine needs. And if we can find out what their needs are, then we can recommend the product and do a suitability report. So get their needs. We'll find out what suitability is. So we'll do a lovely suitability report. And then we can give advice. And risk lens on, we should be okay, because as long as we get the right needs of what the client needs, then we can do some advice, and we can back up the advice with a suitability report to prove why we've given the advice. Everyone's a winner. And that's how they felt. That's how their compliance people looked at it. And that's where it all went wrong, really. Because what you started to find... Well, by the way, suitability reports were never mandatory. Never had to do them. The companies did. They gave these 25 million page reports to clients to read who never read them. But that's another story. So what went wrong? Quite simply, these needs, these determined needs, these needs that clients had to give you in order for you to give the right advice were the problem. Because what they did is they started to give scripted questions. They started to give their mortgage advisors scripted questions to find out what the needs were so they give advice. Because remember, this is production line stuff, This is like hundreds of mortgages done every day on the telephone or face-to-face. So scripted questions, you therefore get the client's needs, and then you recommend the product, and then we can upscale that, and everyone's a winner. Remember, banks, building societies, when they lend directly, it's about productivity, it's about production line. And that's where it started to go a little bit wrong, in my opinion, because what I saw when I observed lots of these things is these advisors asking these scripted questions, which started to become leading questions. So a leading question is where you're leading them down a certain area. So, Mr. Brown, let's take a look at your mortgage itself. Are you looking for a risk-free mortgage, or are you looking for some risk? Bad question. I made it up. It's leading. Mr. Brown, are you looking for a risk-free mortgage? Well, of course I'm looking for a risk-free mortgage. I don't want any risk. Suddenly, okay, risk-free gets noted as a need, and it goes towards getting the advice. And that's what's happened. So what's the answer to this one? Well, the answer, as far as I'm concerned, then, is to look at some freestyling. Now, I'm a reasonable swimmer. I learned to swim years ago when I was at school. And I can do the front crawl, I can do the breaststroke, and backstroke's a bit of a problem. Butterfly, I cannot get to grips with at all, but I'm a reasonable swimmer. And I'm always intrigued by the Olympic Games, where you have medals for front crawl and breaststroke, etc. But there's this thing called freestyle. And freestyle, apparently, is not a stroke. It's a category in a competition. And depending on the categorisation, it means you can use whatever stroke you want to achieve the goal of winning. Most go for front crawl, but oddly enough, actually, you can do butterfly. I think you do backstroke as well, but many Olympic ones don't. Of course they don't, because it's their best stroke, which is front crawl. So that's what we're saying to you, is get into fact finding in a freestyle manner. In other words, give your advisors the freedom to fact find how they wish. As long as they get the needs clarified properly, as long as they get the client's needs which help you to give advice, then let them do it how they wish. Let them do it freestyle. It's scary stuff, if you're a compliance person. Oh my God, we can't do that, But it helps the client get a better experience, because the average mortgage interview is awful. The client's tearing their fingernails out at the end of it because they've just been interrogated. Now, if you let go, let the client talk, freewheel around, get a great conversation going, then you should be in a good place. Now, don't get me wrong, you need a fact-find form. Everything needs to be filled in, facts, figures, soft information. Of course it does. Of course you need that, and I'm not daft, I understand that. But when it comes to the actual needs themselves, let it go freestyle. But you need a little bit of sort of fundamental parameters. And here's the parameters. It's a 5-step process for you that I recommend that you use. 5-step process. Step number one, put it over here so you can read that. Can you read that from where you are? I think you can. Step number 1 is content and reason. So that's your context. And what you do here is you give the customer the context in which you're talking about. So, for example, it could be, length of term is the need area you're looking at. What sort of term is the customer going to be needing? And you get into the context. Okay, Mr. Brown, what I'd like to do is talk to you about the things that we need to find out what kind of mortgage is right for you. Now, the first area I want to look at then is the length of time in which the mortgage loan is repaid. I need to find this out, of course, because we need to make sure we give you the right term of mortgage to allow you to repay it when you need to do. So you give the context and the reason why. So you set the scene, if you like, as to where you're going. And then simply you ask your question. So you could say at that point, okay, Mr. Brown, what are your thoughts around that then? Nice question, isn't it? Well, how do you feel about that? Let them just talk. And then when they talk, the customer will talk, because they're good at that. You then listen, obviously. And really listen, just proper listening, not just, yeah, get you. No, real listening, real understanding listening. And as you hear things, do some non-verbal nods, get them talking more. Every now and then, just ping in with the question, why? Not like that, why? Tell me why. You just sugarcoat this thing. You need to really make it soften. Find out why. So let's just say, what we want to talk about, Mr. Brown, now is the length of time that your mortgage is paid over. The reason for that is that we want to make sure it's done the right. You don't want to pay it well into retirement. But everyone's different. You need to find out about your situation. So give me your thoughts around that. And he starts talking, and he talks about wanting to have the mortgage maybe wrapped up before he reaches age 70. Is what the customer tells you. So you're nodding. Okay, I understand that. It's an interesting concept. Do you mind me asking why? And he'll tell you. Actually, we're age 70. Obviously my pension's going to be kicking in, but I'm looking to hopefully move down to the coast. We always wanted to move down to Cornwall, so we're going to downsize. That's the plan anyway. So we want it all wrapped up by then, really. The payment, my pension income will kick in, which can be a bit lower. So that's the reason why. And that's great, because once you've got the reason why, let's get my red pen, which I fell down here, but there we are. Shows you it's live, doesn't it? So once you get your reason why, you can then do your suitability report, because that used to be called the reason why letter, didn't it? So that's all you need. And then once you've got the reason, you then summarise. Okay then, Mr. N, let me just summarise what I'm hearing from you. Is that correct? Yes, it is. Brilliant. Lovely. Okay, let's move on to another topic area then. Well, I want to talk about certainty and your thoughts around how important it is that the mortgage that you take out is certain to repay the mortgage. Let's talk about that area. What's your thinking around that? Again, you just get the context. Then with the reason, you've got to give the reason why you're asking these questions, or you want them to explore this area. And then you want to sort of get into the question itself, and then you want to listen, then you want to find out why, and then summarise. And you can do this around 5 or 6 specific need areas, depends on the need areas you want to explore, and just let the customer talk, and then freewheel, or freestyle as I call it. It really does work. It really does work. By the way, factual information, you can get the client to do that for you. Get factual information for Factfinding. Get the client to fill in the factual information. Get them to do it online themselves. It's not a difficult thing to do. Or get some artificial intelligence that trawls the internet for the facts. Get your computer system talking to their bank account, for example. Use open banking or APIs to connect to various other systems. And get the factual stuff that way. Mortgage advisors in the future won't be paid to get facts. That's boring. Computers can do that. This is what it's about. This is the conversation that you have with the client. This is what makes it real and comes to life. Obviously, there's more to it than that. Of course, it depends what the customer tells you. But that's freestyle, which, again, the Olympics aren't running this year, are they? They've been postponed to 2021. In fact, there's no sport. I do miss the sport, actually, I have to say. But there we are. Freestyle Factfinding. Maybe that's been useful.